Hi everybody and welcome to this Studio One 4.5 overview/review video. Today we're going to find out if Studio One might be something for you, or which type of producer would benefit from using Studio One. Okay, so before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming videos. My name is Matthias and let's take the tour. Okay, so let's begin by looking at the interface of Studio One. Here we have the song mode in Studio One. Studio One offers two different applications. So you have the song application and you have the project application. The project application is for mastering your tracks. So let's go back to song mode, and here we have the arrangement view where all our MIDI tracks and audio tracks reside. At the leftmost side here we have a little icon for bringing up a smaller track view. In this track view we can hide some of these tracks if we only want to view certain tracks for editing. But if we play back, we will still hear some of these tracks that are hidden. So that's a quite nice feature to be able to hide some of these tracks. Let's make them visible again. Then at the top of the screen we have our toolbar, and we have some different tools here for selection and cutting and deleting clips. We can mute clips with this little tool. Then we have the time stretching tool, which is called bending in Studio One. Then we have the transient detection, so we can just open up this transient detection panel. And now we can select a clip down here and press the analyze button, which will analyze this clip and show us all the onsets. So we can then use the bender marker here to bend and time stretch our audio. Then we have some quantize options and some playback options and this sketcher pad or scratch pad. Then we have this film icon or movie icon, because Studio One is very capable of handling movies and film if you're a film scorer or film composer. So it's definitely a great option if you're working in the field of media composing. Then at the right side we have the browser of Studio One. So we can press this little home icon and it will bring us to the home screen here, where we can select instrument, effects, loops, files and Presonus shop if we want to buy additional softwares. And then we have the pool, which is the samples contained within this used by this project. And at the bottom of the screen we have the transport panel where we can play and stop and record. We can set the looping mode to be on and off. And we can also select some options for metronome and timing and tempos. And we have some performance, a little performance window here for monitoring CPU and disk usage. So that's nice. Then we have the mixer panel and we have the edit panel. And in Studio One you're using the function keys of your keyboard to bring up all these different views. So we can use function F2 to bring up the edit window or the piano roll if you're editing a MIDI track. Press function key 3 to bring up the mixer. Then we have 4 for opening the information panel. Then 5 to bring up the browser, and 6 and 7 and 8 to jump between instrument, effects and loops. So it's quite nice to learn these shortcuts if you're going to work swiftly within Studio One. The information panel gives us information about a certain track that's selected. So if we select this audio track down here, it's an acoustic guitar, so we can rename this track to acoustic left, acoustic right. But if we select this first acoustic layer, we can see that the track has a tempo set to time stretch. Then we have the time stretching algorithm set to drums, so you have different algorithms and they sound really good. Then you have some options for grouping and layering. And you can set the delay for the track. And then you also have access to the volume and solo and mute, etc. Okay, so let's look at some basic audio editing in Studio One. So if we look at these two tracks, I pre-recorded some acoustic guitar tracks. So if we select this first audio clip, we can move the gain. We can adjust the overall gain for this audio clip by moving this little knob up here. Then if we move this first node, we can select the fade in of the clip. And the same thing goes for the fade out at the end here. And we can also change the curve for the fade outs here, or the fade ins. Then of course we can group tracks to be able to control multiple tracks, because it's one of the strengths with the Studio One. I think Studio One is really good if you're using multi-tracking, if you're recording multiple drums. Maybe you have a drum kit with 10 mics or something. Then it can be really good to edit multiple tracks at the same time. Go to the mixer and we can select these two tracks, the acoustic left and right. And we can right click and select the group selected tracks. We have the ability to name this group. Let's select guitar. And now we can see in this left panel in the mixer, we can have the group open here. If we right click on this guitar group, we can see that the group is going to control editing, volume. We can select if panning is going to be applied to the group too. Mute solo, record, insert and sends. So what this basically means is since we have the editing and volume locked in this group, if we just select one of these tracks and move the fader, it's going to move this second fader too. So that's very nice if you want to move several drum tracks at the same time, or in this case, move this acoustic guitar. Of course, you can also adjust one at a time if you want. Just push down Alt on your keyboard and you will select and move only this specific fader. If we let go of the Alt key again, we can adjust both faders. And now, since we selected grouping for these two audio tracks, the acoustic tracks, if we go into the transient detection here for this first track and select Analyze, it will do analyzing and give us all these transients which were detected. Now, if we're doing some audio bending here, or time stretching, it's also going to apply that to our second audio track. So that's very handy if you want to edit multiple drum tracks at the same time and have them all synced up with your audio time stretching or audio bending. Okay, so what about time stretching multiple tracks at the same time? It's very easy here, since we have these acoustic tracks grouped. All we have to do is use the arrow tool here and hold down Alt, and you can see that this little time icon appears, this little clock. And if we adjust the clip, when we have that clock activated, we can make this double speed. So that's a very nice time stretching algorithm. I think it sounds really great. Now we can just duplicate these two clips by pressing D. We can also reverse clips by pressing Command and R. Okay, so that's a little quick overview of the audio editing in Studio One. Okay, so what about MIDI editing? Let's go in here to one of these tracks. We can disable the guitar tracks. And here we have the piano roll. So there's plenty of good options here in the piano roll to help us compose. You can see if we have this track panel open within the piano roll, we can see our track that we selected up here. But we can also use these other tracks and have these ghost tracks. So we can see the harmony, the underlying harmony. This is something that you often see in FL Studio. But as you can see, we can do the same thing here in Studio One very easily. And you can also select which of these tracks you want to edit at any one given time. So you can just select the track here, and you can see this little pen which turns blue, which means that you are editing that specific track. If we select these two first bars, we can go into the actions here, and here we have plenty of options to do different stuff to the MIDI notes. And here we have this randomized notes feature, which I think is really nice. And if we select this use original pitches only, it will take the pitch that are detected here, and it will randomize and place these notes anywhere on any of these pitches. So we can do some really fun experimental melodies with this function. Let's press OK here, and now we have a totally different melody here, or arpeggio. let's do the same thing for these two. Randomize notes. Then you have other options here for quantizing, and quantizing only 50%. And humanize and some other nice features for MIDI editing. Okay, so what about instrument plugins and effects within Studio One? If we go to this rightmost browser panel and select instruments, we can see we have our regular VST instruments. And if we go to this little tab called Presonus, we can see the specific instruments for Studio One, which is the Impact, which is a drum machine with tons of presets. We have MyTime, which is a very nice synthesizer. We can actually load with this one up and look at this. It's a 2 oscillator synthesizer, but it also has a character mode here. So you can select different characters, which will very heavily alter the sound of this synthesizer, which I think it has a really gritty and nice sound, this synth. And then you have the regular filter with some soft settings and a little bit of drive and punch and resonance. And some LFOs and the effects section at the bottom here. So that's the MyTai. Then we have the Mojito, which is a kind of analog sounding synthesizer. Then we have the Presence, a lot of different presets. So you have everything from strings, percussion, keyboards, guitars, and some more drum kits and basses and instrument combinations. And then we have a regular sampler in Studio One too. So here we can do the regular mapping, have envelopes, and even record audio in here. So that's a quite nice and handy sampler. Let's look at the effects of Studio One. The same thing in this tab. We have our regular collection of VST plugins. Then we go to the Presonus tab here and look at the Presonus or Studio One specific plugins. We have the Ampere, so it's an guitar amp modulation. Analog delay, which is a very nice sounding analog delay. Auto filters, beat delays, some channel strips, and a compressor. We have expanders, and we have this fat channel. If we open up this fat channel, we have different compressors. We have the standard compressor, and we have the tube and a FET compressor. In this case, for this little cue, I'm using the tube compressor. And we have an equalizer down here and a limiter at the bottom here. But we can also disable some of these if we want to have them activated. And then we have some flangers, gates, groove delay, IR maker, and some leveling stuff and limiter, mix tool. And the mix verb multiband dynamics, which is a multiband compressor. We have open air, which is an IR reverb. And some phase meter, phaser, pipeline mono, and pipeline stereo. The Pro EQ, which is a very nice sounding EQ. I'm actually using the Pro EQ on these guitar takes, or these guitar tracks. So that's a nice collection of plugins. And on the master meter here in Studio One, you also have this console shaper, which has a drive and a noise and a crosstalk. So this is basically emulating how an analog console will sound, analog mixing console. So you can drive the track very heavily. Most of the time you just need some subtle drive on this one. We also have another alternative to the console shaper. We can use this CTC1, which is another type of console emulation. So you can have it set to classic, tube, or custom, which will give you a different sound in the drive and noise, etc. But as I said, subtle goes a long way with these type of effects. Then of course you can choose to show the inputs of Studio One. And here we can introduce some more gain or reduce the gain of the input signal. And we also have the ability to do phase flipping. Okay, so how about the video support for film composers in Studio One? Well, we have this video tab up here. And here I've loaded with this plus sign here. You can add a video to the project. I already added the video. So when we have added video to our project, we can easily just go up here to Song and Export Video. And this will burn the audio into the video, and we can export it to a certain place here. So let's select it to QuickTime Movie, H264, and between the loop points. And we're going to use the main output. Just press OK, and it's going to export this video with the music. And this is something that I really wish that every DAW had, because it's really eases up the work with the directors and producers, because now we can easily just send this clip to a director or a film producer, and it makes for a faster turnaround time. There we have that rendered clip. Okay, finally for the conclusion here, I think that Studio One is really geared towards the media composers and film composers, because we have this really great video support in Studio One, and we have some great MIDI editing capabilities to be able to see all these tracks at the same time while we are editing. And it's also geared towards recording and mixing bands and artists, since if you have many drum tracks, it's very easy to edit all these drum tracks together in one go. So that's a very convenient editing feature. And it's also very great at emulating analog consoles. That's a very good point here in Studio One. And that you have all these analog modeled kind of plugins in Studio One, which makes the sound very warm in this DAW. Okay, so that's the conclusion for today, and if you have any questions, please write them in the comment section below. Thanks to all the new subscribers, and be sure to hit the thumbs up and like and write some kind feedback in the comment section. And also hit the notification bell so that you get notifications when I have new videos out. Thanks for watching today, and see you in the next video. Bye!